Hello, Tim. Are you here?
Hey there.
I think it's time for us to get the party started here. You going to kick us off?
Yeah, I think you have to give me access to turn on video.
Let's see. I've
You might
got,
have it in webinar mode.
yeah, let's see here. Where is Tim? Panelists. I'm going to make you co-host. How does that feel?
I feel special.
There you go.
Hey, there you are. Good
Welcome.
to
Let
see
me
you,
drop.
Joel.
Good to see you as well. Thanks for being here, Tim. I think everyone expected just to see me, so to have your friendly face here is a nice addition.
Yeah, that's great. And we just want to welcome everybody that's joined us. If you're like me, you've been watching Joel's social media posts for the last week or so, and it really is inspiring. There is something that we get to see on the RevThink side, talking to business owner after business owner, having questions asked to us in our 7 Ingredients Slack channel or wherever we're getting it from, and to see the same struggle repeated over and over and over again really does start to inspire us to start figuring out how to answer these questions and take a knowledge base that we have or willing to acquire and put it together. So Joel, it's really been great. I love that you tackled this and you put your head down and say, I'm going to deal with this for the next 30 days.
Well, I'm thankful people are, excited about this conversation and willing to show up and actually listen to me banter on about it. So, set us up, and then I'll take it away, and we'll spend the next half hour, of course, in some content, and then some questions and the rest.
Yeah, sure. I think the topic here is so important because we're actually talking about what it takes to have a company thrive or make a company thrive. And sometimes companies are struggling, and some of the struggles are they're not seeing what the building blocks are to put the solution together. And often those building blocks are right in front of us. We already have those resources or easily know them, and we can put them together. So, our desire today is create some sort of a revelation for you to really let you see the roadmap that's in front of you. And Joel's going to spend the first half hour really explaining a concept to kind of set those priorities and build that strategy. And then we left the second half hour of this conversation open for Q&A. And we know that's a minute we have, for the moment we have, to engage you and kind of get into what your real thoughts are, maybe hear some of the details. So we'll kick it off really and have Joel just kind of give us these first thoughts. And I'll be watching the panel here, Joel, watching people's questions. You can put the questions in the Q&A or in the chat. I'll watch either one of them. Ethan's helping me behind the scenes too, and we'll kind of put them together for you and help you prioritize. And in the meantime, I'm going to sit back and relax unless you call on me. I'll be ready for you. But I know that you're all prepared. You've been working on this, so hand this off to you.
All right, brilliant. All right, let's do this. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll do a brief little introduction. For those of you that don't know me, many of you do. My name is Joel, and I am a consultant at RevThink. Tim, we tell people that we are all about helping the creative entrepreneur thrive in business, life, and career. That is absolutely our mission. We get to work with some of the coolest people in the world. And this is why I love doing what I do for a living, because the people we work with are absolutely incredible. And I love helping these creative people succeed in not just their business, but also in their career and in their lives. All right, our topic today, how some studios, notice the parentheses there, are crushing it despite COVID. What I'm going to do is unpack this thing I call the model of the thriving creative firm. So let's get into this. First of all, who is this for? Okay, if you are a business owner or a partner, if you are running an up-and-coming creative firm that produces projects for clients, you're in the right place. This is about you. I would also say that ideally, this is for creative firms with annual revenue in this kind of a range of, call it 300,000 to 2 million. It's really sort of the sweet spot. And these are firms working in, say, motion design or animation, music and sound design, experiential, and of course, production and you live action folks. What's our agenda? I'm going to spend about 30 minutes. Hopefully, I'll try and stick to that. I want to reveal this thing I call the gap, okay, and what to do about it. Number two, I'm going to expose the common myths that are holding creative firms back, especially during COVID. Three, I'm going to share the mindset and concepts that are being applied by top creative firms. Then, as Tim mentioned, we'll do 30 minutes or so of Q&A after this. So feel free to drop those questions in the chat. There's a Q&A feature inside Zoom. Feel free to use that. And also, for those of you that are taking notes madly, you can put your pen down because there will be a replay later. We'll make that available on our website. All right, my goal is simply this, that when you hear me say something like a third of creative firms are actually thriving right now, and you think, really? That's not what I'm reading in the news. I will show you how. That's my goal. I want to show you how. Why? So that you can thrive too. That's what I want to accomplish. And that's despite COVID. Okay, this is a very real thing. A lot's changed in the past 6 months. So I'm going to start by saying, I want you to, don't be discouraged. I saw this headline on the New York Times last week as I was getting up in the morning, and I said, you know what? Yes, there's a lot of bad news. I get it. But I've been talking to nearly 100 owners over the past months. Tim, you and I did the Revolve Accelerator, and I'll just say this. About a third of these firms are actually doing great. Some of them are totally killing it. And so not all the news is bad. But of course, these owners are not going to come out and say, yeah, we're killing it. That would be very insensitive. So when you hear that a third of firms are thriving right now despite COVID, you're probably thinking, okay, how? How is that? Now, I'll just say there's also some very common questions in addition to this one that I'm hearing from owners right now that are, say, struggling or maybe nervous about where things are at. And some of these questions are things like, well, Joel, if we can't travel, how can we form strong relationships with new clients? I know we should specialize, but isn't turning away work far too risky right now? I can relate. We need to show great work to win great work, but isn't that a catch-22? Or a chicken and an egg? How about this one? To generate leads, which is better, cold email or SEO or hiring a salesperson? And here's a common one for you owners. I'm spread so thin. What should I be focusing on? And one more, how many years will it take until we finally get a shot at high profile, big budget projects? So a lot of these questions are rolled up in this why some firms are thriving and why some are not. So I'm going to, as Tim said, lay out a framework to address these questions. Now, a little bit about me, and you'll see why this is relevant. So I ran Impossible Pictures for 20 years. It was a blast. I sometimes DP'd. So here's a shot of me on set when we were doing a spot for Dish Network. But the company I ran, Impossible Pictures, was based in Denver, about 25 people. We did lots of great broadcast and commercial work and design work and stuff. Won a few awards along the way. It was a blast. You know, probably a couple hundred freelancers and crew as well. But the thing that's also remarkable is being based in Denver, it was surprising, I think, to many to learn that we were generating about $5 million a year in annual revenue. Okay, so when I tell that story, everyone goes, wow, that's really great. That's really amazing. But the reason I share that with you is my first 7 years, not at all that like glory story I just told you. My first 7 years, I was struggling and trying to figure out what the heck. And when I look back, here's what I noticed. And this is a pattern that is common in the industry. The pattern is there are seasons of the creative firm. So when you look at the bottom here, you see, oh, painful season, push season, punch, perform, power. Well, this is what a common pattern that all firms go through as they evolve and they grow and they eventually come to an end. And what I'll show you here is take a look at this space between the painful and the push season. I call it the gap, and this is where I spent 7 years. And believe me, that was a long 7 years. That was not fun. It's called the painful season for good reason. Well, I would say that COVID for a lot of people has exacerbated the gap, meaning making this shift or this move from the painful season where you're below $1 million to the push season where you're over $1 million and maybe have a team size of 5 to 10 people. It's a very difficult transition. And I'm going to unpack a lot of why that is and how COVID has made it perhaps even tougher. All right, so what's at the bottom of this thing called the gap? It's often there are these myths, these things that we tell ourselves that we just know are true because they were true in the past. Maybe they're no longer true now. So as I go through this, I'm going to unpack this thing called the model of the thriving creative firm. And for those of you that have been watching me on social, I've been giving you like a nugget every day for the past week or so. So let's start by saying this, though, that I want you to get excited about what's on the other side of this. Because once you bust these myths, here's what I know is possible because it was my experience and I've seen a lot of our clients do this too. 1, I want you to know the source of your greatness. 2, I want you to stand out from the competition. I want you to be respected as an expert and premium creative firm. And of course, work with the best clients with bigger budgets. Of course, who doesn't want that? Ultimately, to produce great creative work. Okay, that's actually the dream I know is in the heart of each of you here today. All right, now let's get into these myths. So get ready for some tough love. I'm going to do my best to keep it real, but I may offend a few of you. First of all, have you ever asked yourself or heard yourself saying this? Well, if we just focus on producing great work, the rest will take care of itself. I know, Tim, you're cringing. The myth here is this. The myth is that, well, a creative business becomes great by producing great work, right? If we just make a bunch of amazing, cool stuff, we're going to be successful. Well, the shift I want you to think about is, what if your mindset moved to this? Embracing this thought, only a great creative business can produce great work. And I should say consistently produce great work, because there certainly are exceptions. And I use that word business there very specifically. So let me unpack this for you. This quote is going to make you mad or maybe make you cry, but it really nails something that's a bit nuts. David C. Baker was on the Rev Thinking podcast with me, and he said this. He said, Joel, there's actually so little connection between how creative a firm is and how successful they are as a business. If anything, there might be an inverse relationship. Okay, so if you're a creative person and that doesn't make you mad, then you were not listening. So think about what he's saying is the more creative you are, probably the less successful you are in business. That's radical, but let me unpack this. Here's what happens. If you've got this myth all up in your brain, you think it's all about the work. If you get this wrong, you will work yourself to death. Like I did my first 7 years in that painful season, trying to produce great work, but failed to actually produce great work. I know this is being brutally honest, but I'm trying to keep it real. Now, why? Well, because up and coming firms that get stuck working for mediocre clients with mediocre budgets, it's just a nature of the beast that can only produce mediocre work. Yes, there's an exception now and then, but we're not talking about the exceptions. We're talking about you and your life and your business. Now, once you get this right, this is what I've seen happen. You can stop hoping that you're just going to get lucky, meaning, hey, we will eventually get noticed, right? We will win those best clients with those bigger budgets and we'll produce great work, okay? Instead of hoping for that, you can adopt a battle-tested plan to build a great business that has the means to consistently, and there's that word, produce great work. So that's, of course, what we're walking through here today is this model. So here is Creative Mammals. And Masha, I think I saw that you were going to be here today in the webinar. So if you're here, say hey-ya. Creative Mammals, killer studio in Atlanta, Georgia. And as you can see, tons of cool, great work here, right? Well, Masha had this to say. She's one of the partners there. And I really loved this quote. In the process of going through this accelerator program with me, she said to us, you know, we used to just focus on creative also known as do good work and the rest will come. But now we see it's critical to have an action plan and a clear vision of where we want to be as a business. So thanks for that, Masha. I think that nails it. And coming from you, that's even more powerful. So here we are. This is our model. We all want great work. How do we get it? Well, great work doesn't just come from producing great work in and of itself, and the rest takes care of itself. We need something to produce great work. And what is it? Well, in the thriving creative firm, the thing that creates, enables, fuels great work is best clients. You got to be working for the best clients. So if I told you, go get a bunch of best clients, you would probably say, okay, that sounds nice, but how do I do that? Well, let's get into it. Here's our next idea. Have you ever heard yourself say this? Sure, our clients aren't the best, but they keep us busy. I know when you see it like this, you realize, oh, right, that's probably not correct thinking. Now, the myth here is every firm must pay its dues working for lackluster clients. Really? Who says? Who told you that? The shift here is stop settling. You choose your clients, so why not work with the best? I know you're saying, no, the clients pick us. Trust me, that's a myth. You choose your clients. Now, if you get this wrong, here's what happens. You will probably have a lot of repeat business from one or two big clients. Okay, but I'll say this, too much repeat business is actually bad. What? Yes, because you are reacting to your future, not creating it. Lots of repeat business, you're just responding to all these things coming at you, and you don't know where that's going to take you, and you don't have control over it. So I would say this, rather than reaching for those top clients, you probably revert to some old habits, like, well, we'll update the website, polish our demo reel, tweak our SEO, instead of actually solving the real problem, which is those best clients, right? Getting out there. Now, here's the thing. Once you get this right, this whole let's go after these best clients, I want you to do this. Start sharing your expertise with the world. Wait, what? Why would I do that? Because one, you love it. And this is how you rapidly build trust with an audience of like-minded people. And by taking the stage, you will actually generate business with these best clients organically and so much more. There's all kinds of what I call strategic byproducts that come from this. And what does that look like? Well, here's some examples, okay? You could lead a broadcast, okay? Say like a podcast, sure. That's good. Or you could have a conversation, do meetings and calls, that's better. But here's the thing, or a community. This is the best because it's a conversation between you and your tribe as well as amongst themselves. And this is how clever firms are breaking the dreaded feast or famine cycle. It's by creating this community, curating it, putting their expertise out there and building trust. Now here is a podcast called 20,000 Hertz. It's run by friend and client, Jumpstart alumni, Dallas Taylor. This podcast has been a runaway hit now going back a couple years. And I asked Dallas for his perspective about this because he runs De Facto Sound, which is an audio sound design and music company. And Dallas said this, if he was going to encourage you, he said, man, tell everyone, go make something, but don't make it for clients. Make it for the other 7.5 billion people on the planet. Chances are you'll find many who are excited to support what you're creating. So you see that word many, you'll find many, okay? That's where those opportunities, new people, best clients are out there waiting for you. All right, so now we're back to our model. If I said, you want to produce great work? Awesome, all you need are a bunch of best clients. Okay, go do it. Well, there's something beneath, right? We got to peel back another layer of the onion. What is it? You got to take the stage. This is that curating community, sharing your expertise, building trust. But how do we do that? What provides the foundation for taking the stage? There's something else. Let's get into myth number 3 here. It is, have you ever heard yourself say, well, we just need to offer all the services that clients are looking for? What's the myth here? The myth here is, well, if we offer all the right services, opportunity will find us. I know, we wish it was that simple. We still believe on some level. The shift here is that unique positioning lays the groundwork for being an expert. Okay, wait a minute. Joel, you just lost me because I thought we were talking about services and opportunity. Okay, hang with me here. Hang with me here. Unique positioning lays the groundwork. Now, let me say this. If you want to be an expert that is out there taking the stage and working with these best clients, if you sound like this, do you sound like an expert? This is a meme that I wrote a year or so ago, and it goes like this. Does this sound like you and your website or a lot of people you know? About us. We, it's about us, right? Are A, meaning one of many, creative. Those other shops you follow are oh so uncreative. Studio that is passionate. After all, every other shop hates what they do. About producing award-winning, and no one else wins awards. Storytelling, whatever that means. Our unique process, which is really similar to everyone else's, is design-driven, more like caffeine-driven, and highly collaborative, as opposed to our competitors who despise cooperation. Want to work with us? Who doesn't? Give us a call. We're desperate. And you get the point I'm making here. And this created a whole bunch of stir and controversy because so many owners were like, oh, yes, I see what you mean now. But here's a perspective you're going to appreciate. My friend Steve, he's a top creative executive at FX Networks. Okay, one of the best buyers in the world, in the industry. And he commented on this post and I said, can I share this? He was like, yeah, go for it. He said, Joel, it's really sad how homogenous creative firms have become. These days, every shop is a design-centric, storytelling, creative, integrated production studio, LOL. So here's the buyer perspective. This is the client you're trying to break through and you are positioned homogeneously. Okay, you see where this is going? Now what happens here is if you get this wrong, your firm will be one of hundreds of firms offering the same services as everyone else, and therefore your firm will never stand out. Okay, then what? Get noticed, then what? Be respected as expert or premium because you're just a studio, just a production company. Regardless of whether or not you produce great work. I know, I'm being so ruthless here, but I know tons of companies that produce great work that don't get attention, stand out, and get those best clients because it's not about just great work. Great work's everywhere. Now, once you get this right, here's where we're going. I want to ask you, are you just a creative firm? This was what my social media post talked about last night. Okay, I want you to make the move from A to the by spotlighting what makes your studio unique, which is your 3 P's of positioning: your purpose, your power, your personality, and speak from that place. Because this is how you carve out a position in the minds of your prospects and clients, not a place on their shelves, and lay the groundwork to be respected as an expert, not just an order taker, not just we offer a bunch of services. Okay, this is the journey we're all on as creative leaders. So here is laundry in Los Angeles, RevThink client, obviously super fabulous team and creative output is unparalleled. But several years ago, they saw a need to figure out their positioning, to fix what they were saying to the world. And after they went through the process, they got this really great, clean, crisp language and this confidence that came from it. And PJ, one of the partners there, he has this to say. He mentioned me on social media, very kind of him. He said, ladies and gentlemen, listen to Joel. We repositioned ourselves under his guidance and it changed our success rate dramatically for the better. And what I love here is, by the way, thank you, PJ, success rate. So this is like, how many times did we pitch and win versus lose? That rate over time is incredibly powerful. All right, so now we're back to our model. We're slowly peeling back the layers and getting to the heart of the onion. So under great work, best clients take the stage. Here it is, unique positioning, unique positioning. But there's one more layer to go in our thriving creative firm. You ready for it? Have you ever heard yourself say this? My business is so all-consuming, it's impossible for me to focus. I've said that many times in my career. The myth there is that you tell yourself wearing too many hats is exhausting, but eventually it will get better. It just can't get worse, right? Now, the shift I want you to embrace here is this idea that focusing on your genius is the source of your firm's true greatness. In a roundabout way, it is all about you. Now, if you get this wrong, I love this video of this dude trying to wash his car and just stumbling all over himself. If you get this wrong, you'll get stuck majoring in the minors, okay? And that is spending the majority of your time on minor things. For example, bookkeeping. Anyone there? And therefore, never develop your true greatness. Also, you will never identify those things which both, one, bring you joy, and two, produce massive results. And therefore, your firm's positioning will be rudderless, right? If you don't know what your genius is about, how can you go out into the world and tell everybody about it? Now, the possibility here of when you get this right is you can identify the source of your true greatness and confidently, that's such a big word, invest your time focused on your genius. Doesn't that sound like fun? Yeah, you'd be Superman if you could do that. Which enables you to focus on doing those things you love the most while freeing you up to what? Delegate everything else, like bookkeeping. Here's Focogramma. This is run by one of my graduates, Alejandro, who wrote me a note about a year after going through the accelerator he did with me. And it's funny, Tim, I actually keep a copy of this thing with me because it was so inspiring when he wrote to us. And when he wrote with this feedback and he was sharing some thoughts with Joel, with me and Tim, and he said this, a little nugget: I can delegate more. I feel the company growing and me focusing on my genius. We know where are we going and how to get there. I like that English construction there. But isn't this exciting? I mean, this for me, of course, was one of those moments when I felt like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm actually helping people on this journey. So it was very exciting. All right, so now we've just gotten to the foundation of it all in our model, and that is a focus on genius. This is the Thriving Creative Firm model, and I want you to, we'll do a recap here so that I can kind of walk you through how we got here and give you some really good takeaways. I like to say this is how it all stacks up, okay? This is how creative firms are thriving despite COVID. The firms that are strong in these areas, they stack all these elements up. So let's recap, okay? As we recap, we're gonna unpack the model here, try and give you some bite-sized nuggets to take with you and help you. So the recap of the 4 myths we talked about, they go something like this. 1, a creative business becomes great by producing great work. 2, every firm must pay its dues working for lackluster clients. Next, if we offer all the right services, opportunity will find us. And the last myth was wearing too many hats. Yeah, it's exhausting, but eventually things will get better. So in contrast to that, the shifts I'm encouraging you to embrace go like this. 1, only a great creative business can consistently produce great work. 2, stop settling. You choose your clients, so why not work with the best? 3, unique positioning lays the groundwork for being an expert. And 4, focusing on your genius is the source of your firm's true greatness. Those are the shifts. All right, so let's say, I'm got to recap my goal here. Just to let's do a check-in, right? I want to make sure everyone that I actually delivered on my promise, because what I had said to you was when you hear that a third of creative firms are thriving right now and you think, really? My goal was, I will show you how so that you can thrive too, despite COVID. So I hope I've delivered on that goal. Now let's talk about next steps. How can you actually put this into practice? Because now you have this choice, right? Joel talked about all this stuff. I'm either gonna say, no, that's nuts. He just made me mad, or I'm gonna try and put that into practice. So what I would encourage you to do is do this. First of all, reflect, okay? Just be reflective. Which of those 4 myths am I perhaps falling prey to? Next, mindset. What would it look like to embrace those shifts? And then apply it, okay? And I call this building it back up, because you wanna start at the bottom and work your way back up. You don't start with great work and then hope that everything else takes care of itself. You do this. You're gonna focus on your genius. You're gonna carve out a unique positioning. You're gonna take the stage, get out there. You're gonna work with those best clients, win them, and then you're gonna be producing great work. And that's the goal, that's the dream. Now, if you need more help, I wanna mention this because I love helping. If you're not sure how to apply these principles to your specific situation, I've reserved an hour every day to speak with owners, okay, through about the next month. So if that's helpful, be encouraged, because whatever your biggest challenge is, RevThink has seen it before and we've solved it before. What you can expect on the call is I'll give you my perspective, we can strategize how to apply these concepts, and hear my recommendations. Oh, and it's free. And yes, you're like, what? Well, it's because I've invested my career in this industry and I love the community. Tim, you know this, I always enjoy meeting up and coming business owners. It's just, it's what I love doing. So I would just simply ask this, that if you want to schedule a session with me, just confirm that you're an owner, a partner, team size 2 to 10, you have revenue between 300K and 4 million. So if that describes you, let's get you some help. Oh, and if you're not qualified, or if you've already done a strategy session with me, just please don't apply, because the slots are actually really limited and I don't want you to take a slot away from somebody who really, really needs it. Okay, if that interests you, you can go to revthink.com, apply, and grab one of those slots. I know they'll fill up fast, so you do you. Oh, there's also a white paper that we will give you when you register or apply, called Everyone Has a Sales Problem, that also explains this model in writing. All right, I have some nice quotes, but I'm actually gonna skip these because we are just about at the 30-minute point. And let's get into some Q&A, shall we? First of all, Tim, let me check in with you. Did I fulfill my goal here, hopefully?
I think you fulfilled your goal and the 30-minute timeline, which to me is even more impressive, Joel, because I think sometimes, we love what we do and we like to express it. So congratulations getting it through.
No.
Just for clarification, you said you have an hour a day, but really those time slots are not 1 hour time slots. They're half hour or 20 minutes time slots, correct?
Yeah, they're not a full hour. I of course set aside an hour because I have to do a little preparation for each call. But yeah, they're generally 40 minutes or so.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just didn't want to. I'm on board with you too in that when given a chance to just sit down with someone and talk to them, even if it's just 40 minutes, half hour, if they get a full hour, whatever that is, the amount of information we can pass between us and another company just beats 100 emails that we can do.
Yeah.
We do also have the Slack channel, 7 Ingredients Slack channel, and Ethan's going to post the link here into the chat group. If you're not part of the 7 Ingredients community already and you want to join us in the Slack channel, you definitely can. That's where the other business owners are having conversations. We have different channels broken out to different ideas. And Joel, myself, and the rest of the RevThink team, we also answer questions there. So those are resources available to you as well. Perfect.
Well, Tim, I'm guessing you probably got some direct questions along the way as I was chatting it up. And do you want to hit a couple of those? And of course, reminder to folks here, I'm all yours for the next 23 minutes. So if you're just wondering like how to put this in practice, or tell me I'm nuts, of course, I'm happy to respond and explore some of these things in more detail.
Let's start with this question because I think this is a good one. And a lot of people struggle with this inside thought, outside thought kind of a challenge here. But the question is, I want to change the positioning I've had for many years, but how do I do this without losing my current clients?
Okay. That's actually an awesome question because I'll say this, it's a very common fear because people hear this thing about, I got to narrow my positioning. And what they think I'm saying is narrow your offering, meaning, oh, you do 3D and you do editorial and you do live action. Well, you need to only do live action. And I would say, no, that is scary. That's just cutting off your leg, perhaps. That repositioning and getting narrow means getting more clear about the awesomeness that you produce in the world. And that could be a horizontal, like you make people laugh. It could be, rather than a discipline like live action or 3D, it's something more like you produce outcomes called, we generate awareness, we create buzz, we make people feel wistful when they reminisce about your products or your services. It could be any number of ways that you narrow. So I think the starting point, of course, is getting clear about those 3 Ps. What is your purpose, your power, your personality? And then finding where do those things intersect, and then how do they express them through your firm, the name of your firm, the POV of your creative firm. And there was some great advice I got. I think it was from Blair Enns. He was sharing with me, Joel, it's always okay to accept work outside of your positioning. Just don't pursue it. And I would say to people, here's the thing, when your positioning is narrow and crisp, okay, and inspiring, that's what gets you the meeting, right? That's what gets you inside somebody's brain so that they're even receptive to having a conversation and receptive to talking about all the things that you can do for them. But if you just start off with a very broad, vague positioning, it's like trying to go through a tiny door with a freight train. It just doesn't fit, and you're not going to stick in that person's busy brain. So get in there. It's like a tip of a spear. The more narrow it is, it's going to penetrate their brain. And then once it's in there, and they ask you, do you also do 3D? Do you also do live action? You just laugh and say, oh, of course. We've done tons of that stuff. We can help you.
Yeah, interesting to distinguish between the service that you provide with often people list. So their website is like a menu, really like a menu, and they're asking their client to do the hard work and picking and choosing what they want from the vendor or the production company. And instead, position yourself in such a way that the client gives you the problem to solve, and you're the one that chooses which resources to assign to it. Very, very different in that idea. Let me ask you another question here. The question is I don't like to do sales, and I don't necessarily know how to hand off that responsibility to others, because as a business owner, I feel like I'm the only person that knows what to say. How does thinking through my genius allow me to change that issue?
Okay, first of all, that's very common, right? I mean, Tim, you and I would say more often than not, the creative person who starts a firm and launches it, even though they would tell you, I don't like doing sales, they're usually really good at it. It's very common. And then as they gain some success, they start to feel this burden called, yeah, I'm really good at it, but I don't like it. But I can't delegate it. I can't seem to let go of it. Well, first of all, I would say sit down and take a hard look at and do an actual analysis. Like, what are all the things I do? And what are the 2 or 3 things that are my genius? Maybe what you really need is support in the areas that you hate so that you can sell properly, effectively, easily. Right? Look at the friction points. The thing that you may not like doing about that marketing and sales stuff, it might be, well, I just don't like cold calling. Well, okay, then don't. Somebody else can do that. Okay, your genius is probably when you walk into the room, so to speak. That's pre-COVID. But to use that analogy, you're the one when you walk through the door and hold that meeting, you get everyone excited and inspired about what's possible because you're talking about big outcomes, big possibilities, and everyone gets excited and writes you a big check and off you go. That is very, very difficult to replace. The thing that's easy to replace is who's finding the doors, who's knocking on the doors, who's checking and verifying that the doors are even worth knocking on. So that might that would be one encouragement I would offer.
And when you're working with your genius, it is something that you thrive and like to do. So that it's very telling that someone say, "I don't like to do sales." That's not necessarily in their personal genius of what they want, but you're right. The company's positioning. Okay, so Andreas from Argentina asks this: repositioning, is that something you would suggest doing all at once, like the branding, the values, take it all on at one time? Or is it possible to work on this in a mid and long-term process?
Well, okay, so I've done so many repositionings. I've noticed a pattern, right? So like when people go through this process with me in the accelerator, they will very often ask this question: how do I know when I'm done? And my advice is your positioning is never done. It's only better. So even if you say, we're going to quote, do it all and reposition, and rebranding is actually something different than a reposition. Repositioning is what's the space we occupy in somebody's brain relative to competing brands. Rebrand would be change logo, change name, all that sort of thing. Now, would you suggest doing all of those at once? Maybe. I mean, you know, Tim, we have one client right now that's doing that very thing, and they're about to unleash on the world, here's the new and improved who we are and what we're all about. I think in a way, doing that during COVID can actually be very, very smart, because I'll say this, when you look back in history, what you find is a lot of the really smart, successful, innovative businesses all started during a downturn, because this is when people are open to new ideas, new possibilities. The old status quo has been shattered and people are adapting. So there's a certain receptivity. And I would also say this, that when you reposition and rebrand, you're really asking your team, okay, so your employees and all of the people that are part of your creative firm, to go in a new direction. And you need to have a really bold, strong vision in order to help them let go of the past and the way we've always done things and embrace something new that's more valuable and more awesome. So those thoughts might be helpful.
Joel, here's a question that seems to be coming up a lot recently. A conversation I just had this morning. I think we were talking about a client that was dealing with this. And it goes like this. Let's say you refined your positioning, you've published content, you have things for clients to look at. Now, how do I get out there and get visibility in that work? Especially if you're an introvert, the person says. How is it possible to do that, especially during this COVID environment? And is there a way to kind of raise your profile systematically that would make you less uncomfortable?
Wow, super jam-packed question. I would suggest this. One, first of all, look at building a platform. And remember my good, better, best, right? A broadcast is good, a conversation is better, but a community, I think, is best. So when I hear you saying publishing, I would just encourage you to reevaluate and say, how can I make this a community where it's not just a conversation between me and someone, or me and a group, but the group amongst itself? And then if you're an introvert, okay, obviously I'm not an introvert. So I would say something like this. I'm very keen. I always advise my clients, play to your strengths. Okay. If you have a weakness, don't think, oh, I got to get stronger in this area. You'll just end up with a bunch of strong weaknesses, as my old coach, Dan Sullivan, used to tell me. Instead, what I would say is, you know what could play to your strength if you're an introvert is be interviewed. Okay. Like Tim, if I was an introvert, I would have said, hey, Tim, can you lead this webinar and then just ask me questions, but I'll talk to you and not talk to this big, scary group of people out there. There are certain things that if you really sit back and think about it, you ultimately want to put your expertise out there in the world. Why? Well, because it's the fastest and most beautiful way to build trust with an audience. And this is how we rapidly move people through the creative firm sales cycle. It's moving them from that interest, like, yeah, you seem cool, to intent. Like, I want to work with you. You clearly have the answers. You clearly have solutions. You clearly create something amazingly valuable. Okay, you want to collapse that that transition, if you will, as rapidly as possible, because a lot of firms get stuck where we've got 100 people that are interested, but rarely do they ever say we have intent.
Yeah, it's such a good tipping point. Paul wants to know what makes a good positioning statement.
Oh, what makes a good positioning statement? Okay. Well, I'm thinking back to, you remember the 7 sins, Tim, that we did in Revolve? I do have a checklist. I wish I had it handy. I'll say this. First of all, I'll tell you what makes a bad positioning statement. One is it has the word a in it, like we are a blank, okay, which suggests one of many. And I would also say the word we is not a great positioning statement, because we implies what I call pick me, right? It's as if right out of the gate, you're saying, hey, I'm talking about me here. Don't you want to pick me? Okay, instead realize that you're better off creating a positioning statement that is, I would call it an imperative, or it's an invitational. So think of a positioning statement, like for example, Laundries is experts of the unexpected. What? Okay, you see what just happened there is in your brain, you went, I don't fully understand. That sounds really interesting. I want to know more. That's a great positioning statement. Make me curious. That's the gold standard, is to simply create curiosity that leads to a conversation. That's what a great positioning statement does.
And separate you from the crowd, make something that's unique. And yeah, concise, obviously. Currently, we're a 2-person firm working like crazy. We'd love to hire employees, but we're worried that the work might slow down and I can no longer support them. How do you transition into hiring additional creatives?
Well, first of all, I might challenge the question a little bit. Who told you you had to hire additional creatives? Because often the next perfect hire for a company that size is actually a producer. So this really gets back to a question of genius. What are those 2 or 3 things that you love doing, bring you energy, and when you do them, huge results appear? Okay, if you're focusing on those things, now you can delegate all those things you don't like doing to other people. Look to hire those people who have those things as their genius. So my bookkeeping example, I mean, Tim, you and I see this all the time. It's like, stop doing the bookkeeping, hire a bookkeeper, and months later, the owner is like, wow, I have so much more brain space and I'm sleeping better and so on, because yeah, you were the problem. You were in your own way and we had to fire, you had to fire yourself.
Yeah, and you're right. There is more strategic positioning as you grow. I like the idea that you're talking about, Joel, which is it isn't always about the creative, is it? There are some positions that you bring on and helps you get rid of workload so that your creative can come out and be more viable for projects. So,
yep.
Yeah, very cool. Justin Barnes, he'd love to hear how some studios are hosting client drinks or relationship building meetups over Zoom. He's been hearing about some clever activities from different people, but that have been pretty effective. Pretty much, do you have any ideas or heard anything that easier to get out there during this weird shutdown time?
Man, okay, that's a really great question. And I'll be fully transparent. The short answer is no. I don't really know like what is the magic bullet that's gonna break that. But I'll just say this, Justin, I think you're 100% asking the right question. So let's keep asking it, because right now we all think, is it yet another Zoom? I'm already so freaking Zoom fatigued. I can hardly see straight whenever I open this application. So it's getting back to almost asking the question, well, as human beings, what are the ways that we can connect, communicate, have discussions that are not just going to this default thing called Zoom or what have you? I look forward to solving it. I'm still working on it. I would say this, there's probably a lot more that we can do with Zoom that rather than just meeting, right? It's creating some sort of a valuable format, a regular, call it a show, okay? It's a film festival. It's some sort of it's a panel discussion, something like there's we've got more work to do in terms of how we're using this technology. So that's kind of where my head is going.
Yeah. And I'd say this, you have some confidence that everyone's stuck in the same position. So whatever creative opportunities that are out there or things that you've heard, be willing to try it, but also just be willing to be transparent and give people a call. Maybe give them the opportunity to not be on Zoom. They'll take your phone call more than get on Zoom.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
What would you do if you've tried but can't find your agency's genius, or what would really be really good? Personality is clear, but purpose and power are not so clear. We don't want our expertise to be, yes, when people get small budget work done, we are the people who get small budget work done fast.
Right. Yeah. You never want to be positioned as the, when you have a good budget, or when you don't have a good budget and everyone's turning you down, call us. Clearly that's not a good place to be. Well, first of all, I would just make this suggestion, and this is a bit of a loaded statement, so you may have to extend me some grace here. I understand for many business owners, it's not about you, it's about your company and your team and what you're building and how that adds meaning and value to those people's lives. And I agree with that 100%. However, if you ask your clients who really know you well and trust you, they will tell you, yeah, but it's kind of always been about you. Now, what I mean by that and what they mean by that is it's really about your genius and all of the support that you need to do that thing. So when you say our agency's genius, I would say, is that the ownership team, the partners? Because that's generally where it's going to come from. Now, granted, over time, we've seen companies that have 30 and 40 and 50 people, and it becomes much more than just about the owner, clearly. Now, that said, when I think of your purpose and your power, what I'm really looking for there, purpose is, what did you set out to do in the first place when you started your business? What was it you wanted to do? I would also encourage you to think about this. What makes you angry? What do you see out in the world that just offends you and you think, I'm indignant about this. I've got to make this right. I've got to fix this. Okay, that's often something beneath the surface that's a clue to what your purpose is. And then in terms of your power, I say it's how you do what you do that in a way that nobody else does it. And that's a high bar, and you're going to have to dig deep, 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 deep. I'll just say this. Positioning is it's a discovery that takes weeks of soul searching and navel gazing. And probably the first 10 or 20 answers you'll have to the question are all of the obvious and lame and cliche answers. It's usually the 30th, the 40th, the 50th word or phrase when all of a sudden you realize, there it is. Wow. So you got to get all that stuff out first. It's a brainstorm. It's a brain dump. Get it out so you can find the real gem. It's separating the wheat from the chaff. That's that sort of thought.
David from Australia is saying this. He says, we are heavily restricted and lockdown mode. We're working from home, but how can we start positioning ourselves to larger clients remotely in order to prepare ourselves when work opens up again? It really sounds like he wants to take advantage of the slow time and get himself out there. But maybe there's not a lot of relevant current work during the lockdown.
Well, I would say positioning yourself to work with bigger organizations. I'm assuming you mean brands and companies directly rather than agencies or entertainment companies, say. I would say you position yourself like you've always wanted to go after those people, and whether you're doing it or not. And then I think the other thing is you go through that positioning process, of course. And if you want to, schedule a call with me and I'll walk you through it in more detail on how you do that. But once you've got that positioning, it's, this almost sounds silly. Then you start reaching out, like you pick up the phone or send the email or schedule the webinar, and you start building that community knowing, okay, I'm starting something called going to take the stage, put our expertise out here, start building trust. And invite some of your past clients into that process, because they're the ones that will not only show up for you, but they'll quietly vouch for you and add credibility to you and your firm. And you get this sense of, hey, there's a tribe. And this positioning ultimately should almost be like an anthem or a banner, as if you were going off to battle. This is the banner you're going to march under. See, so you're inviting your clients and your prospects into this, hey, we're all on a similar mission together to produce content that makes people laugh, or whatever that thing is. And this becomes very powerful, because it's not just a self-serving, hey, we want to do more projects and do you have something we can bid on type of approach.
We're running short on time, so I thought I would just remind people that the conversation you're talking about, the one-on-one, people can sign up for that by going to revthink.com/apply. I just put a link into this chat over here too, so people could be reminded of that. Just a couple minutes left, Joel, so I'm going to ask you kind of like a speed round of questions. See if you can answer this in like a sentence or two. Would you suggest to place purpose and power on the About Us page of the website?
No.
Well, I was expecting actually a whole sentence, not a whole word out of you.
Speed round, baby.
Yeah, I love it. Right. By the way, what you like to say too is don't make it the About Us page. Just make it the About page. And don't speak down to your clients. Speak up to them. Let them know what you're about. Right. Purpose and power don't belong on that page. Do you think the structure you mentioned, genius positioning, take stage, can work for individuals like directors instead of versus full-time production companies? Because this person is a director.
Yes. Okay. I'll elaborate. Yeah. In short, it totally can. I'm thinking of our friend Megan Wells, great example. I think of Jordan Brady also as a great example. That yes, an individual director or individual creative can be, in a sense, a brand, and can be positioned and put all of those pieces into place and stack those things up.
Yeah, and the examples you gave, there's specific method that those directors have kind of accumulated, and then they've put into a genius positioning and push that method out there too. Easily something they can do. This is the last question, and then we'll wrap it up. This one's from Joel. He says, as the owner, great name, by the way, Joel. As the owner of a UX strategy consultancy firm, we have moved many of our workshops online and have leveraged interactive tools to continue to deliver value. While these have been successful, many of our clients are still hesitant to try this new medium. You'd love our thoughts.
So hesitant to try this medium, I'm assuming he means that doing workshops online rather than in person. Maybe it's something that I would encourage you to find a way to, and I'm making some assumptions here, invite your clients into that platform with you, so that these new clients or prospects can see, oh, they did it. This must work. I think I can trust these people.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that if you're used to delivering a service, so pay us by the hour, or pay us by the deliverable, and you're up against the wall, and now that those services are not being asked for, and you're trying to leverage them forward by making material ahead of time and then asking people to sign up and consume your material, you definitely need a segue between, hey, I'm speaking to a broader audience, or I'm speaking one-on-one inside of a service. And obviously, I think for us, we've stacked them together.
Yeah, imagine if Joel interviewed one of his clients that has been through the online workshop process, and they talked about the results that they got and the outcomes. Okay, that could be very powerful and help people, in a sense, get over that hump. Like, oh, it worked for them, it could work for me.
And what we've learned is answer the same question over and over again to many people. We realize, oh, that's a need to do a webinar. That's a need to do something bigger, because same questions keep coming up.
Yep.
Well, that's an hour and 1 minute. So I think it's time to wrap it up and respect people for the time that they've committed. Joel, again, thanks for committing this. We're really this is halfway through your journey here. You are going to continue the journey of answering this question for the rest of the month. This will be available for replay as part of that webinar. But if you've heard something specific, I really do encourage you to have a conversation with Joel or myself. Please get onto the revthink.com/apply and set up a schedule onto Joel's calendar, have that conversation. There's a lot of great things we know that you're specifically going through, and we want to get to those details because this broad picture has a lot of steps that you're going to want to specifically take, and we can't get there all in 1 hour. So Joel, any last words from you before we wrap this up?
Oh man. Well, I would just go back to that. Be encouraged. Okay. Don't get discouraged, because you, as the creative entrepreneur, you have this enormous power and this enormous prerogative. I would call it a privilege even to take your clients to places they didn't know they could go. All right. The world desperately needs you and what you're going to create next. So stay strong. I look forward to talking with a bunch of you. And Tim, thanks for being my MC and my host. It's like, it was this great role reversal, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I think I need a little bit more practice. You're a little bit more smooth on it, but great job. Well, thank you for joining us today. We are RevThink, and we do exist so you thrive in business, life, and career. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. Please feel free to reach out to us. And 7 Ingredients directly set up one of the one-on-one sessions. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll wrap this up and say thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.